The yellow school bus pulled away, leaving 8-year-old Lily Brooks standing alone at the entrance of Brooklyn Elementary. The crisp autumn air carried laughter and shouts from the playground, but to Lily, they sounded like warnings. She clutched her backpack straps tighter, her knuckles turning white. This was her third school this year. She just wanted to be invisible. Well, what do we have here? The voice cut through the playground noise like a knife. Jessica Carter stood with her hands on her hips, her blonde ponytail swinging as she tilted her head. 3 other girls flanked her, their expressions a mixture of curiosity and cruelty. "Are you lost, new girl? Or just deaf?" Jessica pointed at Lily's hearing aid with a smirk. Lily took a step back, feeling the cool brick wall against her shoulders. There was nowhere to run. The circle of girls tightened around her, their shadows stretching across the pavement like reaching fingers. Jessica stepped closer, knocking Lily's lunchbox from her hands. The metallic clang echoed across the suddenly silent playground. Then came the sound, a low, rumbling growl that seemed to vibrate through the ground itself. The bullies froze. From around the corner of the school building emerged a massive German shepherd, his amber eyes locked on Jessica, hackles raised along his powerful shoulders. The dog's muscles rippled beneath his black and tan coat as he positioned himself between Lily and the stunned group of children. "Max?" Lily whispered, both relieved and terrified. Jessica's face drained of color. What nobody at Brooklyn Elementary knew was that this wasn't just any dog, and what they were about to learn would change everything forever. Leave a like and share your thoughts in the comments along with the city you're watching from. Now, let's continue with the story. David Brooks watched his daughter Lily from the kitchen window as she sat in the backyard, her small arms wrapped around Max's thick neck. The German shepherd rested his head on her lap with a patience that still amazed David. It had been 2 months since Caroline's passing. 2 months of quiet dinners, forced smiles, and nights when he'd find Lily asleep in the hallway outside his bedroom door, Max keeping vigil beside her. The dog had been Caroline's final gift to their daughter, a rescue from the shelter just weeks before cancer took her away forever. Lily wasn't just grieving. She was adapting to a new world without her mother, in a new town, where nobody knew about her partial hearing loss or how she'd been born with it. The doctors had fitted her with hearing aids by age 3, but they couldn't shield her from the curious stares or occasional cruelty of other children. Caroline had always been her fierce advocate, but now that role fell to David, and to Max, who seemed to understand his duty with an almost human comprehension. "Time for bed, sweetheart," David called through the open window, watching as Lily nodded and gave Max a final squeeze before standing up. The dog rose with her, always within arm's reach, as though invisibly tethered to the child. Across town, in a Tudor-style house with a perfectly manicured lawn, Jessica Carter sat at her dining room table, pushing food around her plate as her father, Dr. Robert Carter, the town's most respected veterinarian, criticized her posture. Her mother, Eleanor, kept her eyes down, not intervening when Robert's voice rose. Jessica's knuckles turned white around her fork as she remembered the German shepherd that had lunged at her when she was 5. The scar on her arm, a permanent reminder of those terrifying moments. Her father had saved her then, stitching her wound himself while telling her she needed to be stronger, braver. Now at 8 years old, Jessica had learned that power came from being feared, not from being kind. At Brooklyn Elementary, Miss Thompson prepared lesson plans for the upcoming week, paying special attention to accommodations for the new student joining her class. Principal Walters had emphasized the school's strict no pets policy during their last meeting, but something in the new girl's file, a note from her previous school about her emotional support animal, gave Miss Thompson pause. She believed in rules, but she also believed in compassion, and sometimes the two didn't align as neatly as Principal Walters might like. The morning of Lily's first day dawned with a sky the color of faded denim. David Brooks stood in the kitchen, fumbling with the coffee maker, while simultaneously trying to prepare a breakfast that might tempt his daughter's non-existent appetite. Upstairs, Lily sat on the edge of her bed, running her fingers through Max's thick fur, drawing courage from his steady presence. "It's just school," she whispered, more to herself than to the dog. "Just another school." but her trembling hands betrayed her brave words. Max nudged her arm with his nose, his amber eyes fixed on her face with an intensity that sometimes unnerved even David. The German Shepherd had barely left Lily's side since Caroline's funeral, as though he understood that his role extended beyond mere companionship. When Lily finally descended the stairs, backpack slung over her narrow shoulders, David tried not to notice how her sweater hung loosely from her frame. She'd lost weight in the past months, despite his best efforts with casseroles and takeout. He forced a cheerful smile and placed a plate of toast and scrambled eggs before her. "Big day, Lily Pad," he said, using the nickname that had once made her giggle, but now only earned him a small, polite smile. "I made your favorite." "Thanks, Dad." She picked up her fork and moved the eggs around her plate in a perfunctory gesture that fooled neither of them. Max sat at her feet, his tail thumping softly against the linoleum. David cleared his throat. "Remember what we talked about with Principal Walters? Max has to stay home today. But I've spoken with your teacher, Miss Thompson, and she knows about your hearing aids. She seems very nice." Lily nodded, her gaze fixed on the table. "I know, Dad. I'll be okay." The drive to Brooklyn Elementary was quiet, save for the low murmur of the radio. David pointed out landmarks as they passed: the park where they might walk Max later, the ice cream shop that supposedly made the best Sundays in town, the library with its children's reading hour on Saturdays. Lily nodded at each, her face turned toward the window, one hand absently touching her hearing aid. When they pulled up to the school, David felt a familiar tightness in his chest. The building was cheerful enough, with bright murals decorating the exterior walls and a playground that hummed with the energy of children. But he couldn't shake the memory of the last school, the phone calls about Lily sitting alone at lunch, about the whispers and stares her hearing aids had attracted. "Dad," Lily said suddenly, her voice small, "what if Max gets lonely?" David recognized the question for what it was, not concern for the dog, but for herself. "He'll be fine, sweetheart. And so will you. I'll be right here at 3 o'clock, and you can tell Max all about your day." Lily nodded, her fingers curling around the small pendant she wore, a locket containing a photo of Caroline. Then, with a deep breath that seemed to come from somewhere beyond her years, she pushed open the car door and stepped out. David watched her walk away, her small form soon swallowed by the crowd of children. In the back seat, Max whined softly, pressing his nose against the window. "I know, buddy," David murmured. "I know." Inside the school, Lily navigated the bustling hallways with her eyes downcast, following the directions to room 203 that Principal Walters had provided during their tour the previous week. She was conscious of the curious glances from other students, the way conversations halted momentarily as she passed. Her hearing aids, though small, felt suddenly enormous, like neon signs announcing her difference. Miss Thompson's classroom was a haven of organized chaos. Colorful posters adorned the walls, desks were arranged in small clusters rather than rows, and a reading corner with beanbag chairs occupied one corner. The teacher herself stood at the door, greeting each student by name. "You must be Lily," she said warmly when Lily approached. "I'm Miss Thompson. We're so happy to have you join us." Lily managed a small smile, relieved that Miss Thompson spoke clearly and at a volume that didn't require her to strain to hear. "Thank you," she whispered. "Your desk is right over there," Miss Thompson continued, pointing to a cluster near the windows. "Next to Jessica. She's been with us since kindergarten, so she can help show you the ropes." Jessica Carter, Lily soon discovered, had no intention of helping anyone. The blonde girl with the perfect ponytail and crisp white sneakers looked Lily up and down with undisguised disdain when she took her seat. "What's that in your ear?" Jessica demanded before Lily had even set down her backpack. "It's a hearing aid," Lily explained quietly. "I'm partially deaf." Jessica's eyes narrowed. "So you're, like, disabled?" The word hung in the air between them, sharp and painful. Before Lily could respond, Miss Thompson called the class to attention, and the moment passed. But Lily felt Jessica's gaze on her throughout the morning, calculating and cold. By lunchtime, word had spread about the new girl with the ear things. Lily sat alone, unpacking the lunch David had prepared with such care, when Jessica and her friends approached. "Can we sit here?" Jessica asked, her tone falsely sweet. Lily nodded, hope fluttering in her chest. Maybe this school would be different. But as soon as they sat down, Jessica knocked Lily's juice box over, sending liquid coursing across the table and onto Lily's lap. "Oops," Jessica said, not bothering to hide her smirk. "Guess you didn't hear me coming." Laughter erupted from the table, and Lily felt her cheeks burn. She stood up, juice dripping from her skirt, and hurried to the bathroom where she could cry in peace. The rest of the day passed in a blur of whispers and sideways glances. By the time the final bell rang, Lily's only thought was of Max and the safety of home. David was waiting, as promised, his face lighting up when he saw her. "How was it, Lilypad?" "Fine," she lied, climbing into the car where Max greeted her with enthusiastic licks. It was fine. But that night, as David prepared dinner, he found Lily in the backyard, her arms around Max's neck, tears streaming down her face. The German Shepherd stood perfectly still, allowing her to cry into his fur. David watched through the window, his heart breaking anew. When Lily finally spoke, her words carried clearly through the evening air. "I miss Mom," she said to Max. She would know what to do. The dog licked her cheek, as if in agreement, and settled beside her in the grass. David turned away from the window, giving them their moment. He didn't see the way Max's ears perked up at the mention of Caroline, or how his eyes seemed to scan the yard's perimeter, as though accepting a charge to protect what remained of his family. The science fair had been Miss Thompson's idea, a way to integrate Lily into the class while showcasing each student's unique interests. For 3 weeks, Lily had worked diligently on her project, How Dogs Communicate. Every evening, she and Max would sit at the kitchen table, David helping her mount photographs and research findings onto a trifold poster board. For the first time since arriving at Brooklyn Elementary, Lily showed genuine excitement, describing to her father how she planned to demonstrate Max's ability to understand different commands and emotional cues. "Miss Thompson says I can bring Max in just for my presentation," Lily explained, her eyes bright with anticipation. Principal Walters approved it as an educational opportunity. David watched his daughter carefully attach a photograph of Max to the board. "That's wonderful, Lilypad. Max will be a perfect assistant." On the morning of the science fair, Lily awoke before her alarm, too excited to sleep. She dressed with unusual care, selecting the sweater Caroline had given her last Christmas, and even asked David to braid her hair, like Mom used to. Max sensed her excitement, prancing around the kitchen as David prepared breakfast, his tail sweeping across the floor like a metronome. "Remember, buddy," David said seriously to the dog as they loaded the science project into the car, "best behavior today. This is important to Lily." The German Shepherd sat attentively in the back seat, as though understanding the gravity of his upcoming role. Brooklyn Elementary's gymnasium buzzed with activity when they arrived. Tables lined the perimeter, each displaying a student's project. Miss Thompson greeted them warmly, directing Lily to her assigned station while explaining that Max should wait outside with David until Lily's scheduled presentation time at 10:30. Lily reluctantly parted from the dog, giving him a final pat before following Miss Thompson. "Your project looks wonderful," Miss Thompson said, helping Lily arrange her display. "I'm very impressed with your research on canine communication." Lily beamed, arranging her note cards carefully beside the poster. "Max understands over 30 commands, and he can tell when I'm sad, even if I don't say anything." Jessica Carter arrived shortly after, her father Dr. Robert Carter in tow. Her project, Animal Medicine, How Veterinarians Help Pets, occupied the table directly across from Lily's. Dr. Carter had provided professional-looking displays and equipment from his practice, making Jessica's presentation stand out among the handmade posters and papier-mâché models. "Daddy's going to be one of the judges," Jessica announced loudly to the students nearby, casting a pointed glance at Lily. "He knows everything about animals." Thompson overheard and gently corrected, "Dr. Carter is one of our parent volunteers, Jessica, but the judges will evaluate all projects equally." Jessica's smile faltered, but she recovered quickly. "My dad says a dog's brain is tiny. They can't really understand emotions, they just want food." The comment was clearly directed at Lily, who pretended not to hear. Miss Thompson frowned slightly but was called away by another student before she could respond. Parents and judges began circulating among the exhibits. Lily waited anxiously, watching the clock inch toward 10:30 when David would bring Max inside. At 10:15, she excused herself to visit the restroom, leaving her project unattended for just 5 minutes. It was enough. When Lily returned, she stopped short, a gasp catching in her throat. Her poster board lay face down on the floor, one panel completely torn away. The photographs, carefully selected images of Max demonstrating various behaviors, were scattered, several ripped in half. Her note cards had been dumped into a nearby trash can, some of them stained with what looked like apple juice. Tears welled in Lily's eyes as she stood frozen, staring at the destruction. Across the aisle, Jessica studiously arranged test tubes on her display, avoiding eye contact but unable to suppress a small, satisfied smile. Miss Thompson arrived moments later, her expression shifting from confusion to concern as she took in the scene. "Lily, what happened?" "I don't know," Lily managed, her voice barely audible. "I just went to the bathroom." Other students gathered around, murmuring among themselves. Jessica's voice rose above the others. Maybe she didn't set it up properly, or maybe her dog knocked it over. "Max isn't even in here yet," Lily protested, tears now streaming down her face. Miss Thompson knelt beside her, helping to gather the scattered materials. "We'll fix this, Lily. We still have time before the judges come by." But Lily knew it was hopeless. Weeks of work lay destroyed before her. Without a word, she turned and ran from the gymnasium, ignoring Miss Thompson's calls to come back. She found refuge in a rarely used bathroom at the far end of the school, locking herself in a stall where she finally allowed herself to sob, great heaving cries that seemed to come from the very center of her being. 6 blocks away, Max lay on the front porch of the Brooks' home, where David had left him after dropping Lily at school. The German Shepherd's head rested on his paws, his eyes fixed on the direction of Brooklyn Elementary. Suddenly, his head lifted. Ears pricked forward. He stood, a low whine building in his throat. Without hesitation, Max leapt from the porch and headed down the street, his powerful strides eating up the distance between him and Lily. Back at the school, the science fair continued. Miss Thompson had done her best to salvage Lily's project, taping the torn poster back together and retrieving what note cards she could. When 10:30 arrived with no sign of Lily, David became concerned, entering the gymnasium with growing anxiety. "She was very upset," Miss Thompson explained quietly, showing him the damaged project. "I thought she might have gone to find you." David's face darkened. "She didn't, and I don't see how this damage could have been accidental." Miss Thompson hesitated, then lowered her voice further. "I don't want to accuse anyone without proof, but Jessica Carter was at the table across from Lily's, and they've had some difficulties." Before David could respond, a commotion erupted at the gymnasium entrance. Principal Walter's voice carried across the room. "How did a dog get into the building? Someone catch it!" A streak of black and tan burst through the doors, sending students scrambling out of the way. Max paused at the center of the gymnasium, nose lifted, testing the air. Then, with unerring certainty, he raced toward the hallway where Lily had disappeared. "Max!" David called, but the dog was already gone. In the quiet bathroom, Lily had exhausted her tears and sat now with her back against the stall door, feeling hollow and defeated. The sudden scratch of claws against tile made her lift her head. A familiar whine sounded outside the stall. "Max?" she whispered in disbelief, unlatching the door. The German Shepherd pushed his way in, immediately covering her tear-stained face with gentle licks. Lily wrapped her arms around his neck, burying her face in his fur. "How did you get here?" she murmured. Their reunion was interrupted by the bathroom door flying open. Jessica stood in the doorway, sent by Miss Thompson to find Lily. She froze at the sight of the massive dog, her face draining of color. "Get away from it," she said, her voice rising with panic. "It'll hurt you." Max turned toward the voice, placing himself between Lily and Jessica. A low growl rumbled from his chest, his amber eyes fixed on the girl who had caused his young owner so much pain. Jessica backed away, terror evident in every line of her body. "Help!" she screamed, her voice echoing down the hallway. "Help! There's a vicious dog attacking the deaf girl." The commotion drew students and teachers from the gymnasium. Principal Walters arrived first, followed closely by David and Miss Thompson. Dr. Carter pushed through the crowd, his face hardening at the sight of the German Shepherd. "That animal is dangerous," he announced authoritatively. "Everyone stay back. I'm a veterinarian. I know aggressive behavior when I see it." "He's not aggressive," Lily protested, her arms still around Max's neck. "He's protecting me." But the damage was done. The gathered crowd saw only a large German shepherd growling at a frightened little girl and a tearful child clinging to what they assumed was a dangerous animal. The emergency PTA meeting called in the wake of the dog incident filled Brooklyn Elementary's cafeteria to capacity. Parents sat in clusters, voices rising and falling like waves as they debated the presence of dangerous animals on school grounds. Principal Walters stood at the front, attempting to maintain order while simultaneously assuring everyone that student safety was his highest priority. "As you know, our policy strictly prohibits animals on school property without prior approval," he explained, his bow tie bobbing as he nodded emphatically. While Miss Thompson had received permission for a controlled demonstration during the science fair, what occurred was an unauthorized entry of an animal that proceeded to display aggressive behavior. David Brooks sat stiffly in the front row, his shoulders squared against the weight of accusatory glances. Max wasn't being aggressive, he stated firmly when given the opportunity to speak. He was protecting Lily. He's never shown aggression toward anyone. Dr. Robert Carter stood then, his presence commanding immediate attention. "As a veterinarian with 20 years of experience, I feel compelled to point out that German Shepherds have one of the strongest bite forces of any domestic dog breed. This particular animal showed clear signs of aggression, hackles raised, teeth bared, growling. The fact that it tracked a child through the school is deeply concerning." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. A mother near the back called out, "My son said the dog was guarding that little girl with the hearing aids. Said she was crying before the dog showed up." "That's my daughter, Lily," David acknowledged. "She was upset because her science project had been vandalized. Max sensed her distress and came to comfort her." "Dogs don't sense distress from 6 blocks away," Dr. Carter countered dismissively. "And they certainly don't navigate through town and into specific buildings without training for aggressive purposes." The debate continued, voices growing louder until Principal Walters was forced to use his whistle to restore order. The final decision, delivered with regret but firmness, was that Max would be prohibited from coming within 100 yards of the school property. Any violation would result in animal control being called, and the dog being removed from the Brooks home. Lily, mercifully, had not been present for the meeting. She sat at home with Mrs. Mitchell, their elderly neighbor, working on a new science project poster with half-hearted focus. Max lay at her feet, his head resting on her slippers, as though ensuring she couldn't leave without his knowledge. "Did you know," Mrs. Mitchell remarked casually as she helped Lily re-glue photographs to the poster board, "that dogs can actually sense when their people are in trouble? My late husband used to tell a story about a dog in his hometown that walked 20 miles to find his owner after they were separated in a storm." Lily looked up, her eyes brightening slightly. "Really? That's like Max. He always knows when I'm sad." "Dogs are remarkable creatures," Mrs. Mitchell continued, passing Lily another piece of tape. "They love completely and honestly. No hidden agendas with dogs." When David returned home, his face told the story before he could speak. Lily excused herself, taking Max to her room where she pulled out the journal her father had given her after the funeral. "Letters to Mom," he had suggested gently, "whenever you need to talk to her." Lily wrote slowly, her penmanship careful and precise as she detailed the events of the day, ending with, "I wish you were here, Mom. You'd know how to fix this. Max was just trying to help me. Now everyone thinks he's bad, just like they think I'm broken because of my ears. I don't want to go back to school tomorrow. Ever." The next morning dawned gray and drizzly, matching Lily's mood as she dressed for school. Max watched from her bed, his tail thumping weakly against the comforter when she looked his way. David prepared breakfast in silence, the weight of the previous evening's meeting still heavy on his shoulders. "Miss Thompson called last night," he finally said as Lily picked at her cereal. "She has an idea she wants to discuss with you today." Lily nodded without enthusiasm. "Okay. And I've been thinking," David continued, trying to sound upbeat. Maybe we could look into getting Max certified as a therapy dog. There are programs that train dogs to work in schools and hospitals. If he had official certification, maybe the school would reconsider. Lily's spoon paused halfway to her mouth. Really? They do that? They do, David confirmed, relieved to see a spark of interest in his daughter's eyes. I've made some calls. There's a trainer in the next town over who specializes in it. Her name is Ms. Ramirez, and she's willing to evaluate Max this weekend. For the first time in days, Lily smiled. He'd be the best therapy dog ever, Dad. That small seed of hope carried Lily through the school gates, where she was immediately aware of the changed atmosphere. Students who had previously ignored her now stared openly, whispering behind cupped hands. Several younger children approached, asking wide-eyed questions about her attack dog. He's not an attack dog, Lily corrected patiently. He's a German Shepherd, his name is Max, and he's a good boy. Jessica Carter and her friends kept their distance, but their glares followed Lily through the hallways. During morning announcements, Principal Walters made a point of reminding everyone about the school's no animals policy, his eyes finding Lily as he spoke. When Lily arrived at Miss Thompson's classroom, she found a new seating arrangement. Her desk had been moved from beside Jessica's to a spot near the teacher's desk, beside a quiet boy named Michael, who gave her a shy smile. "Good morning, Lily," Miss Thompson greeted her warmly. "I hope you don't mind the new arrangement. I thought this might be a better fit." Lily nodded gratefully, settling into her new seat. As the morning progressed, she found herself relaxing slightly. Michael was kind, offering to share his colored pencils during art period and asking thoughtful questions about her hearing aids. "My cousin has those," he explained matter-of-factly. "He says sometimes they make everything too loud, and sometimes they don't help enough. Is that how yours work?" Lily was surprised by his interest. "Yeah, sometimes, especially in noisy places like the cafeteria." "You can sit with us at lunch if you want," Michael offered. "Me and my friends don't talk super loud." The kindness of this simple invitation nearly brought tears to Lily's eyes. "Thanks," she managed. "I'd like that." At lunchtime, Miss Thompson called Lily and Jessica to her desk. "I have a special project for you two," she announced, her tone making it clear this wasn't a suggestion. "Our class will be partnering with the kindergartners for a reading buddy program. I'd like you both to work together to help little Emma Robinson. She's very shy and could use some positive role models." Jessica's face flushed with indignation. "But Miss Thompson, I was going to work with Amber and Zoe." "This assignment is non-negotiable, Jessica," Miss Thompson interrupted firmly. "Emma has been specifically assigned to you and Lily. You'll meet with her Tuesday and Thursday afternoons during study period." Lily stared at her hands, wishing she could disappear. Working with Jessica seemed like a recipe for disaster, especially after the science fair incident. But Miss Thompson's expression made it clear she wouldn't be swayed. "You both have unique gifts to offer," the teacher continued more gently. "Jessica, you're confident and articulate. Lily, you have tremendous patience and empathy. Together, you could make a real difference for Emma." The first reading buddy session was scheduled for the following day. Lily spent the evening agonizing over the prospect, eventually confiding in Max as she brushed his coat in the backyard. "Jessica hates me," she told the dog, who listened with pricked ears. "And I think she's scared of you, which is weird because you're the sweetest dog ever." Max licked her hand reassuringly, then suddenly stiffened, his gaze fixed on the fence separating their yard from the street. A moment later, Lily heard the distinctive tap of Miss Ramirez's cane on the sidewalk. "Good evening, Lily," the trainer called. She was a stout woman in her 50s with salt and pepper hair and a permanent smile. "I thought I'd stop by a bit early to observe Max in his natural environment before our official evaluation on Saturday." David invited Ms. Ramirez in for coffee, and they spent the next hour discussing the process of therapy dog certification. Max remained at Lily's side, occasionally bringing toys to show the visitor, but always returning to his vigilant position. "He's quite remarkable," Miss Ramirez noted, watching as Max gently placed his head on Lily's lap when she grew quiet during a discussion of school. "That's called grounding. It's a behavior some service dogs are specifically trained to do when their person is experiencing anxiety or emotional distress. Max seems to do it naturally." He's always been like that, David explained. Caroline, my late wife, she noticed it right away when we adopted him. Said he had an old soul. Miss Ramirez nodded thoughtfully. Do you know anything about his background? The shelter records? David shook his head. Not much. He was found wandering near the highway, underweight and with some old injuries. The shelter estimated he was about 2 years old at the time. Caroline was undergoing chemotherapy, and when she visited the shelter, she said Max just chose her, followed her around the whole time. Interesting, Miss Ramirez murmured. Well, based on what I've seen tonight, I'd say he has excellent potential as a therapy dog. But the training is rigorous, and the certification process takes several months. Are you prepared for that commitment? Lily's face set in determination. Yes. Max deserves a chance to show everyone how good he is. The next morning, Lily approached her first reading buddy session with trepidation. Jessica was already in the library when she arrived, sitting across from a tiny girl with glasses too big for her face and pigtails tied with uneven bows. Hi, Lily said softly, taking the empty chair. I'm Lily. You must be Emma. The kindergartner nodded without looking up, her small fingers fidgeting with the corner of her book. Let's just get this over with, Jessica muttered, loud enough for Lily to hear but not Emma. I'll read first, then you, then we're done. Lily chose not to respond to Jessica's attitude, instead focusing on making Emma comfortable. What book did you bring, Emma? I love stories. Emma slowly lifted her book, revealing a colorful cover featuring a puppy. Dog's Day, she whispered. Jessica rolled her eyes. Great, another dog lover. I love dogs, Lily replied, ignoring the sarcasm. I have a German shepherd named Max. Emma's eyes widened. The scary dog that came to school? He's not scary, Lily corrected gently. He was worried about me because I was sad. Dogs can tell when people are upset. No, they can't, Jessica interjected sharply. Dogs are just animals. They don't have feelings like people do. Lily felt her cheeks flush with anger, but controlled her voice for Emma's sake. Actually, they do. That's what my science project was about. How dogs communicate emotions. Scientists have proven that dogs can recognize human emotions and respond to them. Whatever, Jessica scoffed. My dad's a vet, and he says people just imagine their pets have feelings because they want to believe it. Emma looked between them, confusion evident on her small face. My mom says animals are God's creatures, and they have souls, she offered timidly. An uncomfortable silence fell over the table. Jessica finally broke it by grabbing Emma's book. Let's just read the stupid story. As Jessica began reading in a bored monotone, Lily noticed Emma's increasing discomfort. The little girl's eyes kept darting to Jessica's face, then away, her shoulders hunching slightly with each page turn. Lily recognized the signs of anxiety all too well. Maybe we could take turns reading pages? Lily suggested when Jessica paused for breath. Emma might enjoy hearing different voices. Jessica looked ready to object but was interrupted by Miss Thompson passing by their table. How's it going here? Emma, are you enjoying your reading buddies? Emma managed a small nod, though her eyes remained downcast. Excellent, Miss Thompson beamed. Jessica, I noticed you're doing all the reading. Remember, this is about engaging Emma in the story, not just reading to her. Why don't you let Lily try a page? With a huff, Jessica handed the book to Lily, who took it with a grateful smile to Miss Thompson. Once the teacher moved on, Lily turned to Emma. Would you like to help me read? She asked. Maybe you could be the puppy's voice, and I'll read the other parts? Emma's face brightened slightly. Really? I could be the puppy? Absolutely, Lily confirmed. Whenever we get to a part where the puppy talks, I'll point to you, okay? As they continued reading, with Emma giving tiny woofs and hesitant puppy phrases, Lily noticed Jessica watching them with an unreadable expression. When the story concluded, Emma actually smiled, her earlier shyness momentarily forgotten. That was fun, she admitted. Can we read like that again next time? Of course, Lily promised. Maybe you could bring another animal book if you want. As they packed up to return to their classrooms, Jessica lingered behind. How did you know to do that? She asked Lily, her usual hostility tempered by genuine curiosity. Make her be the puppy's voice? Lily shrugged. I just thought it might help her feel less scared. When I was little, my mom used to do that with me when I was nervous about reading aloud. For a moment, something like vulnerability flickered across Jessica's face. My mom doesn't read with me, she said quietly. Then, as if realizing she had revealed too much, she added hastily, "Not that I need her to. I'm the best reader in our class." Before Lily could respond, Jessica hurried away, leaving Lily to wonder about the brief glimpse of humanity she'd seen in her tormentor. That afternoon, as David drove Lily home from school, she surprised him by recounting the reading buddy session with something approaching enthusiasm. "Emma's really sweet, Dad, and I think Jessica might not be completely terrible, maybe just mostly terrible." David chuckled. "That's progress, I suppose. Miss Thompson seems like a wise teacher, pairing you two together." "She's trying to make us be friends," Lily sighed. "But Jessica hates me, and she's definitely afraid of Max." "Afraid?" David echoed, his brow furrowing. "Why would she be afraid of Max specifically?" Lily shrugged. "I don't know, but when he came to school she looked really scared. Not just surprised, but like terrified." David pondered this as they pulled into their driveway. That's interesting. Did you know Dr. Carter specializes in treating animals with behavioral issues? He has quite a reputation for working with aggressive dogs." "Max isn't aggressive," Lily protested automatically. "Of course not," David agreed quickly. "I'm just thinking out loud. Sometimes when people have strong reactions to animals, there's a reason behind it." As they entered the house, Max greeted them with his usual enthusiasm, circling Lily with joyful prances before settling down to accept her hugs. David watched them thoughtfully, an idea forming in his mind. Later that evening, after Lily had gone to bed, David made a phone call to his sister in Chicago. "Claire? It's David. I need a favor. Can you look up some information on Dr. Robert Carter? He's a veterinarian here in Brooklyn. I'm curious about his history with German Shepherds." The annual Brooklyn Elementary spring field trip to Hillcrest Nature Preserve was a tradition dating back 30 years. Students spent the day hiking gentle trails, identifying local flora and fauna, and enjoying picnic lunches beside the small lake that served as the preserve's centerpiece. For most children, it was the highlight of the school year, a day of freedom from classroom walls and structured lessons. For Lily, however, the prospect filled her with equal parts excitement and dread. She loved nature and had been looking forward to spotting the birds her mother had taught her to identify. But the thought of spending an entire day navigating Jessica's hostility without the safe haven of Miss Thompson's classroom was daunting. Despite 3 weeks of reading buddy sessions with Emma, the relationship between Lily and Jessica remained tense at best, antagonistic at worst. "You'll have a wonderful time," David assured her that morning as he packed her lunch with extra care, adding a small container of strawberries, Lily's favorite. "Just stay with your group and focus on enjoying the preserve." Lily nodded, adjusting her hearing aids. The forecast called for wind, which sometimes created uncomfortable feedback. "I wish Max could come," she said wistfully, watching the German Shepherd sitting attentively by the back door, as if prepared to accompany them. "I know, sweetheart," David replied gently. "But Miss Ramirez says he's making excellent progress in his training, just 4 more sessions before his first certification test." Indeed, Max had impressed the veteran trainer with his intelligence and responsiveness. In just 3 weeks of intensive work, he had mastered basic therapy dog commands and demonstrated a natural ability to remain calm in stimulating environments. The ultimate goal, getting him approved as Lily's official support animal at school, still seemed distant, but no longer impossible. At school, the excitement was palpable as students boarded the yellow buses that would transport them to the nature preserve. Miss Thompson carefully arranged seating assignments, placing Lily next to Michael, with Jessica and her friend Zoe in the seat behind them. Principal Walters stood at the front of their bus, reviewing safety rules with exaggerated solemnity. "Remember, children," he concluded, adjusting his bow tie, "the buddy system is non-negotiable. No one, and I mean no one, wanders off alone. Stay with your assigned partner at all times." Lily's heart sank when Miss Thompson announced the buddy pairings. "Lily Brooks and Jessica Carter will be partners for the nature walk portion of our trip." Jessica's face mirrored Lily's dismay. "Miss Thompson," she protested immediately, "I'm always partners with Zoe. We plan to identify birds together. I brought my dad's binoculars and everything." "I've made my decision, Jessica," Miss Thompson replied firmly. This arrangement will benefit both of you." The 40-minute bus ride passed in awkward silence. Michael attempted conversation, pointing out interesting sights along the route, but Lily's responses were distracted, her thoughts fixed on the impending partnership with Jessica. Behind them, Jessica whispered furiously to Zoe, occasionally punctuating her complaints with pointed glares at the back of Lily's head. Hillcrest Nature Preserve welcomed them with a spectacular display of early spring wildflowers. The main trail began at the visitor center, winding through woodland before emerging at the picturesque lake. Several smaller paths branched off from the main route, offering views of meadows, streams, and a small waterfall. Park rangers greeted the buses, distributing maps and wildlife identification guides to each pair of students. "The main trail is clearly marked with blue blazes," the head ranger explained. "Yellow blazes indicate shorter loop trails that all reconnect with the main path. Red blazes are restricted areas, no students allowed." "Questions?" Jessica snatched the map from the ranger before Lily could reach for it, studying it with a superior expression. "I've been here tons of times," she informed Lily coldly. "My dad brings me for birdwatching. We don't need to follow the other kids like babies." Miss Thompson overheard and approached them. "Jessica, Lily, I expect you both to stay with the group. The buddy system works only if you work together." "Yes, Miss Thompson," they chorused, Jessica's tone considerably less sincere than Lily's. For the first hour, the field trip proceeded without incident. The students hiked the main trail, stopping at designated points where rangers discussed local wildlife. Lily found herself genuinely enjoying the excursion despite Jessica's continued coldness. She spotted a red-tailed hawk circling overhead, one of her mother's favorite birds, and felt a bittersweet connection to Caroline's memory. After a picnic lunch by the lake, Miss Thompson announced that students would have supervised free time to explore the immediate area. "Remember to stay within sight of a chaperone at all times," she emphasized. "We'll meet back here in 30 minutes to begin our return hike." Jessica immediately grabbed Zoe's arm. "Come on, I want to show you the place where I saw a heron last time." "Jessica," Miss Thompson called, "please stay with your assigned buddy." With poorly disguised irritation, Jessica turned to Lily. "Fine. Do you want to see the heron spot or not?" Lily hesitated. She had been looking forward to sitting quietly by the lake, perhaps writing a letter to her mother in the journal she'd brought along. But the prospect of seeing a heron was tempting, and refusing would only antagonize Jessica further. "Okay," she agreed. "Is it far?" "Not really," Jessica replied vaguely. "Just along that trail." They set off, Jessica leading the way with Zoe, while Lily followed a few steps behind. The yellow-blazed path curved away from the lake, climbing gradually through a stand of white pine. Lily noticed they were moving steadily farther from the main group, but reasoned that Miss Thompson had approved the excursion. After about 10 minutes of hiking, they reached a small clearing where the trail forked. A wooden sign indicated that the left path led to Heron Overlook, while the right fork displayed a prominent red blaze and the words, "Restricted Area, Steep Terrain." "It's this way," Jessica announced, pointing to the red-blazed trail. "The sign is just to keep little kids away from the best viewing spot." Lily frowned, but the ranger said red trails are off-limits, and the sign says it's dangerous. "Don't be such a baby," Jessica scoffed. "I've been this way lots of times. Right, Zoe?" Zoe looked uncomfortable. "Actually, I should get back. My mom's chaperoning, and she'll worry if she can't find me." "Fine," Jessica snapped. "Go back if you're scared. Lily and I will see the heron ourselves." Before Lily could protest, Zoe had already started back down the trail, throwing an apologetic glance over her shoulder. Lily found herself alone with Jessica at the trail junction, a growing sense of unease settling in her stomach. "I think we should go back too," she suggested carefully. "Miss Thompson will be looking for us." Jessica's expression hardened. "Of course you're scared. Just like you're scared at school, hiding behind your dog because you can't stand up for yourself." "That's not true," Lily protested. "Max was trying to help me after someone destroyed my science project." "It was just a stupid poster," Jessica retorted, but her eyes slid away from Lily's accusing gaze. "It was 3 weeks of work," Lily said quietly, "and those were the only photos I had of Max with my mom before she died." Something flickered across Jessica's face, surprise perhaps, or a flash of guilt. But it vanished quickly, replaced by her usual hostility. "Whatever. Are you coming to see the heron or not?" "I'm going back," Lily decided firmly. "You should too. We'll get in trouble." "Fine, go back. Tell Miss Thompson I pushed you or something. That's what you want, isn't it? To get me in trouble?" "No," Lily sighed. "I just want to follow the rules and be safe." She turned to head back down the trail, relieved to be ending the confrontation. She had taken only 3 steps when she felt a hard shove from behind. The force caught her completely off guard, sending her stumbling forward. Her foot caught on an exposed root, twisting painfully as she fell. She landed hard on the packed dirt trail, the impact driving the air from her lungs. For a moment, there was only shocked silence. Then Jessica's voice, high and panicked. "I didn't mean, I wasn't trying to." Lily tried to stand, but a sharp pain shot through her ankle, causing her to cry out. She managed to sit up, clutching her rapidly swelling ankle, tears springing to her eyes. "I'm sorry," Jessica blurted, her face pale. "I didn't mean to hurt you, I just wanted to scare you a little." "Help me up," Lily gasped through the pain. "We need to get back to the group." Jessica reached down hesitantly, but when she tried to help Lily stand, another cry of pain forced them both to realize the severity of the injury. "I can't walk," Lily admitted, fear creeping into her voice. "Wait here," Jessica said, backing away. "I'll go get help." Before Lily could respond, Jessica had turned and fled down the trail, leaving her alone at the junction. Lily sat in stunned disbelief, the throbbing in her ankle matching the pounding of her heart. She tried calling after Jessica, but the wind carried her voice away from the direction of the main group. 6 miles away, Max lay on the brook's front porch, his usual post when Lily was at school. His ears suddenly pricked forward, head lifting as though listening to a sound only he could hear. Without hesitation, he rose, leapt from the porch, and set off at a run, ignoring Mrs. Mitchell's startled call as he passed her yard. At Hillcrest Nature Preserve, Miss Thompson had organized a search party. Jessica had returned to the group alone, breathless and visibly upset, claiming she and Lily had become separated on the trail back from Heron Overlook. Her story contained conspicuous omissions, but Miss Thompson's immediate concern was locating Lily. "Principal Walters, please escort the remaining students back to the buses," she directed. "Mr. Martinez and I will search the yellow trail with the park rangers. Jessica, you'll come with us to show exactly where you last saw Lily." Jessica nodded mutely, her earlier bravado entirely vanished. As they set off, she remained uncharacteristically silent, lagging slightly behind the adults. Meanwhile, Lily had managed to drag herself to the base of a large oak tree just off the trail. The pain in her ankle had subsided to a persistent throb, but she knew walking was impossible. She had tried calling for help several times, but the spring breeze carried her voice away from the main trail. Now, as shadows lengthened across the forest floor, a new worry set in. What if they didn't find her before dark? She reached into her backpack, retrieving her journal and a pencil. If nothing else, she could leave a written record of what had happened. "Dear Mom," she began, her handwriting shaky, "I'm scared. I'm alone in the woods with a hurt ankle. Jessica pushed me and then left me here. I wish Max was with me, he'd know what to do." As if her written words had conjured him, a rustling sound came from the underbrush nearby. Lily froze, her pencil poised mid-sentence. A moment later, Max burst through the foliage, his coat covered in burrs, tongue lolling from exertion. "Max?" Lily whispered in disbelief. "How did you?" The German shepherd rushed to her side, covering her face with frantic licks before circling her protectively, his entire body quivering with tension and relief. Lily wrapped her arms around his neck, burying her face in his fur as tears of relief streamed down her cheeks. "You found me," she murmured. "You always find me." Max whined softly, then suddenly lifted his head, ears alert. A moment later, Lily heard voices calling her name in the distance. Max barked, a deep, resonant sound that carried through the trees. "Here!" Lily shouted, her voice bolstered by hope. "I'm over here! Max is with me!" The search party arrived minutes later, led by Miss Thompson and a park ranger. Their expressions of relief quickly gave way to astonishment at the sight of Max standing guard beside Lily. "How on earth did your dog get here?" the ranger asked, keeping a cautious distance. "I don't know," Lily admitted. "He just found me." Miss Thompson knelt beside Lily, examining her ankle with gentle hands. "This needs medical attention. It might be broken." She glanced at Max, who watched her every move with attentive eyes. "And your dog traveled 6 miles to find you. That's remarkable." Jessica hung back at the edge of the group, her face pale and drawn. When the ranger radioed for a stretcher team, she finally stepped forward. "It's my fault," she confessed, her voice barely audible. "I pushed her. It was an accident, but I pushed her." A heavy silence fell over the group. Miss Thompson's expression hardened, but before she could speak, Lily intervened. "She came back," she said simply. "She could have pretended we just got separated, but she told you what happened." The stretcher team arrived, and Max growled softly when they approached Lily, only quieting when she reassured him. "It's okay, boy. They're helping me." As they prepared to transport Lily back to the trailhead where an ambulance waited, Jessica approached hesitantly. "I'm really sorry," she whispered. "I was just so angry, and I don't even know why anymore." Lily regarded her silently for a moment. "Your dad's going to be at the hospital, isn't he?" Jessica nodded miserably. "He's on call today." "You're afraid of what he'll say," Lily realized. "About what you did." Jessica's eyes filled with tears. "He always says I'm a disappointment. This will just prove him right." Before Lily could respond, the stretcher bearers lifted her, and Max barked in alarm. The ranger moved to restrain him, but Lily called out, "No, please. He won't hurt anyone. He's just worried about me." "That dog traveled miles through the forest to find a little girl with a broken ankle," Miss Thompson stated firmly. "I think he's earned the right to stay with her." As the strange procession made its way back to the trailhead, stretcher bearers carrying Lily, Max padding vigilantly alongside, and Jessica following behind with Miss Thompson, none of them noticed the dark clouds gathering on the horizon, or the first distant rumble of thunder that signaled an approaching storm. Brooklyn Community Hospital bustled with its usual efficient chaos as the ambulance arrived from Hillcrest Nature Preserve. Emergency room nurses rushed to meet the stretcher carrying Lily, while Max trotted alongside, refusing to be separated from her despite the staff's initial protests. David Brooks arrived moments later, his face ashen with worry after receiving Miss Thompson's call about the accident. "Lily," he gasped, reaching for his daughter's hand as the medical team transferred her to an examination bed. "What happened? Are you all right?" "Dad," Lily managed through tears of pain and relief. "Max found me in the woods. He knew I was hurt." David looked down at the German Shepherd, who maintained his protective stance beside Lily's bed. His coat was matted with burrs and mud, evidence of his determined journey through the forest. "Good boy, Max," David whispered, his voice thick with emotion. "Good boy." The attending physician, Dr. Patel, approached with a clipboard. "Mr. Brooks, I'm going to need to examine your daughter's ankle. I understand from the paramedics that she fell on a hiking trail." Her eyes flicked to Max. "Hospital policy doesn't allow animals in treatment areas, but under the circumstances." "He won't be any trouble," David assured her. "He's in training to be a therapy dog." Dr. Patel nodded. "Very well, but he'll need to stay clear of the equipment while we take x-rays." In the waiting room, Miss Thompson sat with Jessica, whose earlier confession had given way to silent, miserable tears. When the emergency room doors swung open to admit Dr. Robert Carter, Jessica visibly shrank in her seat. Dr. Carter strode directly to the nurse's station, his voice carrying across the room. "I received a call about the Brooks girl. I understand there's a dog involved?" The nurse pointed toward the examination area, and Dr. Carter turned, catching sight of his daughter. His expression darkened as he crossed to where Jessica sat. "What are you doing here?" he demanded. "Where's your mother?" "Mom's at work," Jessica replied, her voice barely audible. "Miss Thompson brought me." Dr. Carter turned to the teacher. "Why exactly is my daughter at the hospital instead of on the field trip?" Before Miss Thompson could respond, Jessica spoke up. "It's my fault. I pushed Lily on the trail and she got hurt." Dr. Carter's face flushed with anger. "You did what? After everything I've taught you about behavior and consequences?" He gripped Jessica's shoulder. "Wait here. I need to check on the patient and that animal. We'll discuss your punishment later." As he marched toward the examination area, Miss Thompson placed a comforting hand on Jessica's arm. "Your father seems very upset." Jessica nodded miserably. He's always upset, but this time I really messed up." Inside the examination room, Dr. Patel confirmed that Lily had suffered a displaced fracture of her left ankle, requiring surgical intervention to properly set the bone. "We'll need to schedule the procedure immediately," she explained to David. "She'll be in a cast for 6 to 8 weeks afterward." David nodded, squeezing Lily's hand reassuringly. "You'll be just fine, Lilypad, I promise." The door swung open, and Dr. Carter entered, his medical coat buttoned precisely over his crisp shirt, a stethoscope draped around his neck. "Dr. Patel, I understand there's a situation with an unauthorized animal in the hospital?" At the sound of his voice, Max's head snapped up, a low growl rumbling in his chest. Dr. Carter stopped abruptly, his eyes fixed on the German Shepherd. For a brief moment, something like recognition flickered across his face, quickly replaced by professional detachment. "This dog needs to be removed immediately," he stated flatly. "It poses a health and safety risk to patients and staff." "With all due respect, Dr. Carter," David countered, "Max is the reason my daughter was found so quickly. He tracked her through miles of forest." "That doesn't change hospital protocol," Dr. Carter replied crisply. "I'll call animal control to take custody of the dog while your daughter receives treatment." "No," Lily cried, attempting to sit up despite her pain. "Please don't take Max away." Dr. Patel intervened. "Dr. Carter, the child is already distressed. Perhaps we could make an exception until she goes into surgery?" Dr. Carter's jaw tightened. "The dog should at least be examined. If it's been running wild through the forest, there's no telling what parasites or diseases it might be carrying." "Max is perfectly healthy," David insisted. "His veterinary records are up to date." "Who is his veterinarian?" Dr. Carter demanded. "Dr. Hap Abrams in Chicago," David replied. "We recently relocated." Dr. Carter's phone rang before he could respond further. Checking the screen, his expression changed. "I need to take this. But this discussion isn't over." He left the room, already speaking rapidly into his phone. Dr. Patel turned to David with an apologetic smile. "We need to prep Lily for surgery soon. Perhaps there's someone who could take your dog home while you stay with your daughter." Before David could answer, a commotion erupted in the hospital corridor. Raised voices carried clearly into the examination room, followed by the unmistakable sound of the fire alarm. Dr. Patel rushed to the door, opening it to reveal staff and patients moving rapidly toward the exits. "What's happening?" David demanded, instinctively moving closer to Lily. "Fire in the East Wing," Dr. Patel replied tensely. "We need to evacuate immediately. The orthopedic surgical team will have to wait." The hospital's emergency evacuation procedures kicked into high gear. Patients who could walk were guided toward the nearest exits, while staff prepared to move those who couldn't. Dr. Patel quickly removed the temporary splint from Lily's ankle and replaced it with an inflatable air cast. "This will stabilize the fracture during transport," she explained, working efficiently. "Mr. Brooks, can you carry your daughter?" David nodded, carefully lifting Lily into his arms. Max stayed close beside them as they joined the stream of people moving toward the evacuation points. The hospital corridors filled with smoke, and staff distributed surgical masks to filter the air as emergency lights flashed overhead. In the confusion, David realized they had become separated from Dr. Patel. He paused at a junction where the corridor split in 2 directions, uncertain which way led to safety. Other evacuees pushed past them, adding to the chaos. Lily clung to her father, her face pale with pain and fear. "Dad," she whispered urgently, "where's Jessica? Is she still in the waiting room?" David's head snapped up. In the rush to evacuate, he had forgotten about the girl who had injured his daughter. "I don't know, sweetheart. I'm sure Miss Thompson is looking after her." Max suddenly stiffened, his ears alert. Before either David or Lily could react, the German Shepherd bolted down the right-hand corridor, disappearing into the thickening smoke. "Max!" Lily called after him. "Dad, we have to follow him." "Lily, we need to get you to safety," David protested. But even as he spoke, he found himself moving in the direction Max had taken, drawn by his daughter's certainty and his own growing trust in the dog's instincts. They found Max scratching frantically at a door marked "Storage." David shifted Lily's weight to free one hand and pushed the door open. Inside, huddled in the corner among medical supplies, sat Jessica Carter, her knees drawn up to her chest, eyes wide with terror. "Jessica!" Lily exclaimed. "What are you doing in here?" "I got lost," Jessica sobbed. "I was looking for the bathroom, and then the alarm went off, and I panicked and hid, and now I can't breathe." The smoke was indeed thicker in the small room, infiltrating through the ventilation system. Jessica's breaths came in short, desperate gasps, the beginning of an asthma attack. David quickly registered the gravity of the situation. "Jessica, do you have an inhaler with you?" he asked urgently. She nodded, fumbling in her pocket but dropping the inhaler as her hands shook violently. Max immediately retrieved it, carrying it gently to her in his mouth. Jessica hesitated, clearly terrified of taking anything from the dog's jaws. "It's okay," Lily assured her. "He's trying to help you." Jessica cautiously took the inhaler and administered the medication, her breathing gradually steadying. David adjusted Lily in his arms and extended his free hand to Jessica. "Come on," he urged. "We need to get out of here now." Max led the way, his nose close to the floor where the air was clearest. They had almost reached an emergency exit when a section of ceiling collapsed ahead of them, sending sparks and debris cascading across their path. Jessica screamed, and David pulled both girls back, shielding them with his body. Max didn't hesitate. The German Shepherd leapt through the narrow gap in the flaming debris, disappeared for a heart-stopping moment, then reappeared on the other side, barking urgently. It was clear he had found a path through. "We can't follow him," David realized, looking at the intensifying fire. "It's too dangerous," Max barked again, more insistently, then turned and ran down the corridor, only to return moments later, his behavior unmistakable. "Follow me." David made a split-second decision. "We need to go another way. Max is trying to show us." They followed the dog down an adjacent hallway, away from the worst of the fire, but deeper into the building. Jessica clutched David's shirt, stumbling alongside them. "Where is he taking us?" "I don't know," David admitted, "but I trust him." Max led them to a service elevator, marked "Do Not Use During Fire Emergency," and barked insistently at the doors. David hesitated, years of fire safety training warring with his growing faith in the dog's judgment. "Dad," Lily whispered, her face pressed against his shoulder. Max wouldn't lead us somewhere dangerous, not on purpose. As the smoke thickened around them and Jessica began to cough again, David made his choice. He pressed the elevator call button. The elevator doors closed just as flames licked the corridor behind them. David held his breath, acutely aware that they were violating every fire safety protocol by entering an elevator during an emergency. Jessica huddled against his side, her breathing still labored but stabilizing, while Lily remained cradled in his arms. Max sat alertly at their feet, his eyes fixed on the illuminated buttons as if willing their descent to continue. "Where do you think this goes?" Jessica whispered, her voice hoarse from smoke inhalation. "Basement level, probably," David replied, watching the indicator lights. "Many hospitals have underground tunnels connecting different buildings. It's possible Max is leading us to another exit." The elevator shuddered to a stop at B2, and the doors slid open to reveal a dimly lit service corridor. Emergency lights cast an eerie glow along the concrete walls, but the air was remarkably clear of smoke. Max bounded out immediately, turning to ensure his human charges followed. David stepped cautiously into the corridor, still carrying Lily. "Jessica, stay close to me," he instructed. The girl nodded, pressing herself against his side as they followed Max's determined trot. The German Shepherd led them through a labyrinth of utility tunnels, past boilers and electrical equipment, until they reached a heavy metal door marked "Emergency Exit." When David pushed it open, fresh air rushed in, sweet and clean after the acrid smoke above. They emerged into a loading dock area behind the hospital, where evacuated patients and staff had gathered in the parking lot beyond. Medical personnel immediately rushed toward them, alerted by Jessica's continued coughing. "We need help here," David called out. "2 children with smoke inhalation, and my daughter has a broken ankle." A team of EMTs converged on them with oxygen masks and stretchers. As they transferred Lily to a gurney, Max stayed vigilantly by her side, his mission to lead them to safety now complete. Among the medical staff approaching was Dr. Carter, his white coat smudged with soot, his composed demeanor fractured by visible relief when he spotted Jessica. "Jessica," he exclaimed, rushing forward. "Where were you? I've been searching everywhere." The girl shrank back against David, her voice small. I got lost, Dad. I was scared. Dr. Carter's relief quickly hardened into familiar sternness. You should have stayed with Miss Thompson as instructed. Do you have any idea how dangerous your behavior was? Before Jessica could respond, David interjected. Your daughter was trapped in a storage room, Dr. Carter. If Max hadn't found her, she might still be in there. He kept his tone measured but firm. She's safe now, but she needs medical attention, not a lecture. Dr. Carter's expression flickered between indignation and shock. The dog found her? Yes, Lily confirmed from her gurney. Max led us right to her, and then he showed us the way out through the basement when the hallway caught fire. Dr. Carter stared at the German Shepherd, who returned his gaze steadily. A strange recognition seemed to pass between them, the veterinarian and the dog, something deeper than their brief encounter in the examination room had suggested. That's remarkable, Dr. Carter murmured, his professional detachment momentarily falling away, almost like he knew the hospital layout. Perhaps he did, came a new voice. Dr. Abrams, an elderly man with kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses, approached the group. Hello, Robert. It's been quite some time. Dr. Carter's face paled. James, what are you doing here? I received a call from Mr. Brooks yesterday, Dr. Abrams explained. He wanted Max's complete medical history transferred to your clinic. When I heard about the incident at the nature preserve, I drove down immediately. He glanced at Max with evident affection. I had a feeling you might need some context about this extraordinary animal. As EMTs attended to Lily and Jessica, administering oxygen and preparing them for transport to a nearby medical facility, Dr. Abrams drew David and Dr. Carter aside. Max remained beside Lily's stretcher, but his ears were pricked toward the conversation, as if understanding its importance. Robert, Dr. Abrams began gently, I believe you've been laboring under a significant misapprehension about German Shepherds since your daughter's accident 3 years ago. Dr. Carter's posture stiffened. I don't see how that's relevant to the current situation. It's entirely relevant, Dr. Abrams countered. Because the dog that attacked Jessica wasn't a German Shepherd at all. It was a Belgian Malinois, similar in appearance but a different breed entirely. And more importantly, that dog had been systematically abused by its previous owner. Its aggression was the result of mistreatment, not breed temperament. David watched Dr. Carter's face carefully, seeing the man's certainty begin to crack. How do you know this? Because I treated both Jessica and the dog after the incident, Dr. Abrams replied. The Malinois was brought to my clinic after animal control removed it from its owner. You were too focused on your daughter, understandably, to pay attention to the details. Dr. Carter shook his head in denial. That's not possible. I saw the dog. I know what I saw. Trauma can affect our perceptions, Dr. Abrams said gently. You saw a large dog with pointed ears and a tan coat. In your fear for Jessica, you identified it as a German Shepherd, and that belief became cemented in your mind. David glanced toward the stretchers where the EMTs were preparing to move the girls. Dr. Carter, my daughter's dog has just saved Jessica's life. Twice. He found her in the forest and then led us all to safety during the fire. Does that match your perception of dangerous animals? Dr. Carter's gaze followed David's to where Max sat beside Lily, his demeanor calm despite the chaos surrounding them. Something in the veterinarian's expression shifted, a recognition dawning that transcended his professional judgment. There's something else you should know, Robert, Dr. Abrams continued, his voice lowering. About Max specifically. Do you recognize him at all? Dr. Carter studied the German Shepherd more intently. There's something familiar about him, but I've treated hundreds of dogs over the years. 5 years ago, a volunteer from the Chicago Animal Rescue League brought in a German Shepherd puppy, Dr. Abrams recounted. He'd been found abandoned near a highway rest stop, severely malnourished. You were visiting my practice that weekend, doing a rotation on emergency veterinary medicine. You performed the surgery that saved that puppy's life. Dr. Carter's expression transformed as understanding dawned. The highway puppy? That's impossible. He was adopted by... He stopped abruptly, the pieces finally connecting. By Caroline Brooks, David confirmed quietly. My late wife. She volunteered at the Rescue League. She always said Max chose her, not the other way around. Dr. Carter sank onto a nearby bench, the weight of this revelation evident in his posture. I remember now. Caroline was undergoing chemotherapy. She said the puppy gave her something to fight for. He looked up at David, his professional mask completely fallen away. I had no idea you were her husband. Small world, David replied, extending his hand to the veterinarian. And now that same puppy you saved has repaid the favor by saving your daughter. Across the parking lot, Jessica had been watching this exchange with growing curiosity. Despite the oxygen mask covering her face, she managed to sit up on her stretcher, her eyes never leaving the three men and the dog that had inexplicably found her in the hospital's labyrinth. "Dad?" she called, her voice barely carrying across the distance. "What's happening?" Dr. Carter approached his daughter, his face softened in a way Jessica rarely witnessed. "We need to talk, Jessica. About Max. About what happened today. About a lot of things." "Am I in trouble?" she asked, fear evident in her voice. "No," he answered, surprising both Jessica and himself with the gentleness in his tone. "No, you're not in trouble. But I think I owe you an apology." Jessica's eyes widened in disbelief. "You do? I've been wrong about some important things," Dr. Carter admitted, taking his daughter's hand, "and it's time I corrected those mistakes." Meanwhile, Lily reached out from her gurney, beckoning Max closer. The German Shepherd gently placed his head under her hand, allowing her to stroke his ears. "You knew, didn't you?" she whispered. "You knew Dr. Carter and remembered him from before." Max's intelligent eyes met hers, conveying a wisdom beyond explanation. David approached, placing his hand on his daughter's shoulder. "I spoke with the emergency response team. They're taking us to Memorial Hospital in the next town. Dr. Patel will meet us there to perform your surgery." "What about Max?" Lily asked anxiously. "Dr. Carter has offered to treat Max for smoke inhalation at his clinic," David explained. "He says it's the least he can do after everything that's happened." Lily glanced toward Jessica and her father, noting the unusual tenderness in their interaction. "Something's different about them," she observed. David nodded. "Sometimes it takes a crisis to make us see the truth that's been in front of us all along." As the ambulances prepared to transport the injured to their respective destinations, Jessica suddenly pulled her oxygen mask aside. "Wait," she called out. "Lily needs to know." The EMTs paused, and all eyes turned to Jessica. "Max didn't just save me," she confessed, her voice carrying clearly across the parking lot. "I pushed Lily on purpose at the nature preserve. I was angry and jealous because everyone likes her dog better than they like me. I thought she was trying to take my friends away." Tears streamed down her face. "I'm so sorry. I've been horrible to you since you got here, and then your dog saved my life anyway." The honesty of the confession hung in the air between them. Lily looked at Jessica for a long moment, then at Max, who sat calmly beside her stretcher, his mission complete. "Max doesn't hold grudges," she said finally. "Maybe we shouldn't either." The Brooklyn Elementary Gymnasium had never seen such a crowd. Parents, teachers, students, and community members filled every available seat, with latecomers standing along the walls. Principal Walters paced nervously at the podium, adjusting his bow tie with uncharacteristic frequency. At the center of the stage stood a long table where the school board members sat in solemn formation, their expressions betraying the weightiness of the decision before them. "Order, please," called Board President Margaret Wilson, tapping her gavel gently against the wooden block. "This special meeting of the Brooklyn Elementary School Board will now come to order. We are here to consider the petition regarding the service animal status of Max Brooks, specifically whether to grant an exception to our school's no pets policy." In the front row, Lily sat with her leg extended, the bright blue cast covered in colorful signatures. 8 weeks had passed since the accident at Hillcrest Nature Preserve and the dramatic hospital fire. Her recovery had progressed well, but she still required crutches for longer distances. Beside her, Max lay in perfect stillness, now wearing a vest emblazoned with "Therapy Dog in Training." David sat on Lily's other side, a folder of documentation balanced on his knee. 3 rows back, Dr. Robert Carter sat with Jessica, their relationship visibly transformed from the strained interactions of months prior. Jessica fidgeted with the hem of her dress, her eyes fixed on the back of Lily's head with an intensity that reflected both nervousness and hope. "Before we hear from our speakers," President Wilson continued, I'd like to remind everyone that this is not a trial or disciplinary hearing. We are solely focused on whether Max Brooks meets the criteria for service animal designation under our district policies and relevant state laws. Now I'd like to invite Dr. Margaret Ramirez to present her assessment. Ms. Ramirez approached the podium with a confidence born of decades working with animals. Thank you, Madam President, board members, and community. I've been training service and therapy animals for 23 years, and I can state without reservation that Max Brooks is one of the most naturally gifted dogs I've ever evaluated. She proceeded to detail Max's training progress, his exceptional intelligence, and his intuitive understanding of Lily's emotional and physical needs. What would take most dogs months to learn, Max accomplishes in days. His bond with Lily is extraordinary. But equally impressive is his ability to remain calm in chaotic environments and to interact appropriately with all types of people. As Ms. Ramirez concluded her testimony, Principal Walters stepped forward with visible reluctance. While I respect Ms. Ramirez's expertise, he began, tugging at his bow tie, I must emphasize the precedent this exception would set. Our no pets policy exists for good reasons. Student allergies, potential liability, disruption to the learning environment. If we allow one animal, how do we justify refusing others? The questioning continued for nearly an hour, with teachers, parents, and even the school district's attorney weighing in. Throughout it all, Max remained perfectly still beside Lily, his behavior itself a testament to his training and temperament. Finally, President Wilson called the last scheduled speaker. The board would now like to hear from Dr. Robert Carter. A murmur rippled through the gymnasium as Dr. Carter approached the podium. His reputation as an outspoken critic of dangerous breeds was well known throughout the community. Many expected him to deliver the coup de grace to Lily's hopes of bringing Max to school. Dr. Carter adjusted the microphone and surveyed the expectant faces before him. Many of you know me as a veterinarian who has advocated for strict controls on certain dog breeds. I've testified in previous cases against allowing large dogs in public spaces. He paused, his professional demeanor briefly giving way to something more vulnerable. What you may not know is that my advocacy stemmed from a personal experience. My daughter Jessica's traumatic encounter with what I believed was an aggressive German Shepherd when she was 5 years old. Jessica shifted in her seat, her eyes now downcast. Dr. Carter continued, his voice steady but humbled. I recently learned that I've been operating under a misidentification for years. The dog that frightened my daughter wasn't a German Shepherd at all, but a Belgian Malinois with a history of abuse. More importantly, I've learned that my fear and bias prevented me from seeing the remarkable capabilities of these animals. He turned slightly, acknowledging Max with a respectful nod. This dog, Max, found my daughter when she was lost in a burning building. He led her and the Brooks family to safety when all conventional exits were blocked. Before that, he tracked Lily through miles of forest to find her after an accident that... He hesitated, glancing at Jessica, an accident that my daughter was responsible for. The gymnasium fell completely silent as Dr. Carter continued. As both a veterinarian and a father, I can no longer in good conscience oppose this petition. In fact, I wish to speak strongly in favor of allowing Max to attend school with Lily. This dog isn't just well-trained, he demonstrates an exceptional capacity for service that transcends ordinary training. He saved my daughter's life. He saved Lily's life. And I believe his presence at Brooklyn Elementary would be not a liability, but an asset to all students. When Dr. Carter returned to his seat, Jessica squeezed his hand, pride evident in her expression. President Wilson called for a brief recess while the board deliberated. David leaned over to Lily, whispering reassurances. Max remained alert but calm, his eyes occasionally finding Jessica in the crowd, as if acknowledging their shared journey. 20 minutes later, the board members filed back in, their decision reached. President Wilson approached the podium once more. After careful consideration of all testimony and documentation, the board has voted unanimously to approve Max Brooks as a certified therapy dog permitted on school grounds. This approval comes with conditions, including regular behavioral assessments and updated health certificates. Principal Walters will work with the Brooks family to implement appropriate protocols. She smiled warmly at Lily, Congratulations, young lady. You and Max have made quite an impression on our community. The gymnasium erupted in applause. Lily buried her face in Max's fur, overwhelmed by the victory. David wrapped his arm around his daughter's shoulders, his own eyes suspiciously bright. As the crowd began to disperse, Jessica approached hesitantly, her father a supportive presence behind her. Congratulations, she offered, her voice sincere if still somewhat shy. Max deserves it. Thanks, Lily replied, extending her hand in a gesture that bridged their complicated history. Maybe you could help me teach the other kids how to interact with him? Since you know him pretty well now. Jessica's face brightened. I'd like that. 3 months later, on a crisp autumn morning, Max trotted confidently through the halls of Brooklyn Elementary, his therapy dog vest impeccably clean, Lily walking beside him without crutches. Students and teachers greeted them by name, some reaching out to pat Max's head as the pair made their way to Miss Thompson's classroom. The classroom itself had undergone a transformation. A special area near Lily's desk had been designated for Max, complete with a comfortable bed and water bowl. More significantly, the reading corner now featured a Read to Max schedule, where students who struggled with reading could practice without judgment, the German Shepherd providing an attentive and non-critical audience. Good morning, Lily. Good morning, Max, Miss Thompson called as they entered. We have a special visitor for our class today. Emma Robinson, now a first grader but still sporting her oversized glasses and uneven pigtails, waved enthusiastically from beside Miss Thompson's desk. I'm going to read a story to everyone, she announced, her former shyness noticeably diminished. About a brave dog who saves people. Lily guided Max to his designated spot, then took her seat beside Jessica, who had become, if not a best friend, at least a friendly companion. Their shared experience had forged a connection that transcended their initial antagonism. My dad's coming for career day next week, Jessica whispered as Emma prepared her book. He's going to talk about animal rescue work. He's volunteering at the shelter now. That's awesome, Lily replied. My dad says your dad has been a huge help with Max's final certification tests. Their conversation was interrupted as Emma began reading, her voice clear and confident. Max's ears perked forward, his amber eyes fixed on the small girl with gentle attention. From the doorway, David and Dr. Carter watched the scene, their own unlikely friendship a testament to the bridge Max had built between their families. I still can't quite believe it, Dr. Carter murmured. That little highway puppy I treated all those years ago, ending up here. Caroline would say it wasn't coincidence, David replied. She always believed Max came into our lives for a reason. As if hearing his late mistress's name, Max briefly turned his head toward the two men, his intelligent eyes seeming to convey understanding, before returning his attention to Emma's story. 1 year to the day after the accident at Hillcrest Nature Preserve, a small procession made its way through Oak Ridge Cemetery. Lily led the way, carrying a bouquet of wildflowers. David followed with Max walking sedately beside him. Behind them came Jessica and her parents, Dr. Carter carrying his own modest floral arrangement. They stopped at Caroline Brooks's headstone, a simple granite marker beneath a spreading oak tree. Lily knelt to place her flowers, her fingers tracing the engraved name. Hi, Mom, she said softly. I brought everyone to meet you. Max stepped forward, gently pressing his nose to the stone as if greeting an old friend. Jessica hung back slightly, uncertain of her place in this intimate moment, until Lily beckoned her forward. Mom would have liked you, Lily assured her. Especially now that you're not pushing people down hills. Jessica managed a small laugh, the joke evidence of how far they had come. I brought these, she said, offering a small bundle of forget-me-nots. My mom helped me pick them out. Eleanor Carter, a quiet woman who had found her voice in recent months, smiled encouragingly at her daughter. Dr. Carter placed his own flowers beside the others, then stepped back, giving the girls their moment. I was thinking, Lily said, addressing Jessica but looking at her mother's headstone, maybe we could start a program, with Max, visiting kids in the hospital who are scared or lonely, like a bigger version of reading to Emma. Max would be great at that, Jessica agreed, and we could teach other kids about dog safety too. Mom would have loved that idea, Lily said, her hand resting on Max's head. The German Shepherd leaned against her, solid and reassuring, a living connection between past and future, between loss and new beginnings. As the autumn sun filtered through the oak leaves, casting dappled shadows across the small gathering, Max lifted his head in a pose of dignified contentment. In that moment, he was more than just a dog. He was the thread that had woven together broken pieces, creating something stronger and more beautiful than anyone could have imagined when a small, frightened girl first stepped off the school bus at Brooklyn Elementary. As we journey through the autumn of our lives, we discover that the most powerful connections often come in unexpected forms. Max's story reminds us that sometimes the greatest healers have 4 paws and a wagging tail, bridging divides that human words cannot cross. Like Dr. Carter, we may carry misunderstandings that harden into beliefs over decades, only to find them gently dismantled by grace arriving in forms we least expect. And like Lily, we may face losses that seem unbearable until we discover that love leaves echoes that continue to guide us. The wisdom of our years teaches us that healing rarely follows straight lines. The very relationships that begin in conflict often transform into our most meaningful bonds when we open ourselves to second chances. Perhaps the most precious gift of our advanced years is perspective, the ability to recognize that in our interconnected stories, there are no coincidences, only paths crossing exactly when they should. As Max demonstrated, sometimes the journey back to wholeness requires only that we follow the invisible threads of connection that have been there all along, waiting for us to notice. I hope you enjoyed today's story. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss more stories like this. Leave a like and comment below what you thought of the story. See you in the next video.